Welcome to the JetLife podcast, pulling back the curtain on private aviation so you can live that jet life to the fullest. Whether you're looking to charter a jet or own a jet, my name's Tom Lelyo, and I'm your ultimate jet guide. Now on to the show. All right, welcome everybody to the JetLife podcast. Well, I have stepped in it today. This will probably get released a little bit later on after the fact, but today we dropped an amazing interview with Volato Aviation and Phil Michaels. Thank you so much. Shout out to them. If you're in the Florida area or anywhere in the country, you love Honda jets, you want to fly in one of the most sustainable light jets in the world, featuring the Honda jet, go check out flyvolato.com. But anyway, we posted, and I'm going to share my screen with you guys here. We posted on LinkedIn today about Volato right here. What if there was a way to offset your carbon footprint? Hashtag save the planet. Well, before we said, what if there was a way to offset your carbon footprint? The title actually read, we all know that private jets are a huge problem for global warming. Stop. So that was where it started. You know, we all know that it's a big problem, and we don't all know that. I mean, that's the narrative that we're being told, but we don't all know that. So I want to give a shout out to my buddy Robert over here, who is just like, hey, Tom, by the way, you know, that's really not the case. You can check out Volato for a second, but that's really not the case. And so he pointed out to me that we had made that mistake. And it's funny because earlier, about a month or so ago in January, I went through this article in Forbes with Abigail Disney's call to ban private jets and talking about how it's a little bit out of touch. And so what I wanted to do today is talk to you a little about private jets, global warming. Obviously, having a carbon footprint is something we all want to be made aware of, and I want to talk about that today on the podcast. I just got off recording with Tim Wade over at the Safety Wire podcast, and we were talking about this a little bit because I brought it to his attention, like, dude, I made a mistake here. And he was like, you know what, Tom, like, I understand what's going on. And when I read that post earlier today, before you changed it, I was a little taken back too, because I know that that's not really what you think, Tom. So he said, you know, even though private aviation jets do play a role in global warming, I think we're doing, as an industry, I think we're doing a lot, even a lot more than some other industries, to try to fight the impact that we're having on the environment. And we went through a couple of different things, you know, Delta getting rid of some of their gas guzzling jets, private aviators focusing on sustainable fuel, and a couple other things that we're going to talk about today. So it's not all doom and gloom. And it was my mistake by accidentally presuming that we all know that they're a big problem. So let's take a look at Abigail Disney's. You know, at one point, so Abigail Disney, you know, is from Walt Disney, and she was saying how she flies commercial, and you know how we shouldn't be doing private jets, et cetera, et cetera. She says here in a tweet, I'd like to elaborate on the private jet thing. Private jets are a cancer. You know, she also occasionally flies business class, and I fail to see what's so hard about that. It's interesting when you look at, you know, how much fuel burn and how much of a carbon footprint like those huge jetliners are putting out there versus private aviation. That's just one thing to consider. But I wanted to go, because later on in the article, they talk about a couple of stats, which is really interesting, that come out of atag.org. It says private aviation is responsible for only 2% of aviation's total carbon output. And aviation is just 2.1% of overall human-induced carbon emissions, meaning that the private jets emit 0.04% of global human-induced emissions. So let's take a step back here. Aviation as a human-driven contributor to global warming, aviation, just commercial, private, etc., is only 2.1% of all of it. So you've got manufacturing, you've got cars, you've got all this other stuff that is contributing to the human-induced carbon emissions. Aviation, commercial and private, accounts for 2.1% of all of it. Now, when you look at private aviation, private jets and stuff like that, that's 2% of the 2.1%. So we're at 0.04% of all global human-induced CO2 emissions is from private aviation. And what I found interesting about this is, it didn't really impact me that much, but when I was talking to my buddy Tim and when I talked to other people, and then I started looking into it, it's kind of a big deal.